How do? What are we waiting for, Stephen? Eh? Back off, stay away. Come on, you crazy. How do? So today I'm going to talk about dirty protests, dirty conditions. For me, the most extreme protests in prison. Instead of talking today about human excrement, S-H-I-T, Tom Tit, yeah, rhyming slang, Tom Tit, yeah, human waste. I'm going to call it Tom because I'm going to be using that word a lot. So Tom, the use of Tom. Before we even get started on this, as I say, dirty conditions it was changed to. For me, there's two distinct differences in people protesting using their own Tom and people who have mental illness. Quite often people who are mentally unwell have mental illness. A lot of lads, sadly, that I saw go to forensics units and the like, when they're unmedicated, it quite often descends into a state of nakedness. They'll be naked in a cell. They will try and harm themselves, and you know, they will eat their own Tom. Disgusting as that may sound, I remember a psychiatrist coming in, a psychiatrist who I really liked from Ashworth Hospital, and we also had an independent psychiatrist come to see a lad who was really unwell in his cell, naked. Like I say, he was eating in his own Tom. Both psychiatrists looked at him, both similarly said there's nothing right about doing what he's doing, and he was off on an emergency section, thankfully, to get some treatment. You know, in prison you used to be able to administer meds, not now. So extreme protesting. The first time I saw someone on a dirty protest was in the private sector in the segregation unit. I never worked with this lad. I was involved a couple of times. Whilst on overtime, you know, asked to go down the segregation, get kitted up. There is a whole set of rules and regs when dealing with people on dirty protests. There's procedures to follow. At best, for prison staff, you know, it's an inconvenience. At worst, it's just a massive assault on the senses. I can't tell you. This lad, and I've only reflected on this as I've been walking up here with Stephen, probably one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen. He was in the special cell. Special cell is basically a bare cell with a plinth to sleep on. There's no toilet, nothing like that. Again, at best, somebody in there, you would have a hatch where you could pass them water and food. This lad, for me, no question, should have been in a mental hospital, in seclusion, you know, being given a jab in his backside. He was in our segregation way too long. He was in the special cell way too long. He was obviously very, very disturbed. There was Tom everywhere in this cell. He was covered in it. The cell was covered in it. And let me tell you now, so to be on a protest, a dirty protest, that might be a smear of Tom on the wall, yeah, a smear on your own body, or, you know, he was the extreme, it was everywhere. He was eating it, he was covered in it, his hair was matted, it was everywhere. You know, first visually, taking it all in, not easy, can't take it in. Like I said, this lad was disturbed. He was a clever lad. He had a couple of 3 degrees, maybe. A couple of them might have been masters in psychology and the like. It's a long time ago this, but you know, just thinking about that lad, the conditions he lived in the segregation unit were horrendous. He don't bear thinking about now. Some of the things he would paint on the wall using Tom, so pictures, portraits, and then he would harm himself, and he would use blood, you know. So basically you've got shit and blood on his cell, pictures, painting pictures that looked real, and then using blood to sort of enhance the paintings, as it were. Yeah, not good. I would later work in that segregation unit, and at one point we had 7 prisoners, 6 of them being young, 1 more mature, who sort of led the protest, as it were. That's 7 lads in their own cells, covered in Tom. Yeah, you would walk onto the unit, it hit you. At that time, very little visits from anyone that unit. Pretty much you would try to facilitate the prisoners who weren't on protest with exercise and showers and the like. You would try to do or get on with the segregation routines, adjudications, where someone would come down and prisoners would come down when they'd been placed on report, and they would go in front of a governor. Very, very difficult, you know. Feeding times, you would be required to get fully kitted up, PPE, personal protection equipment, overshoes, overalls, hoods up, masks, gloves, the whole 9 yards. If they were violent, you would have CNR, control and restraint equipment, under these paper suits. So you would have big overalls, boots and the like. Even pads at time, shin pads, arm pads, helmets. Yeah, like I say, at least an inconvenience. The 7 lads down there, I never knew this. Part of the procedure is every day you give them the opportunity to clean up, move cells. So have a shower, clean their old cell and move them into a new cell. Bit of reverse psychology, one of the senior officers. This goes totally against procedure. He'd had 2 lads on the exercise yard who agreed to clean up and come off protest. On the yard, they decided that they weren't going to. They verbalised this to staff. When they came in off the yard, he put them in each other's cell. So being on a protest, you know, I would imagine the smell, once you're in your own cell, it would just go. Your olfactory system, big word of the day, will get overloaded. You know, a bit of shite on your own wall or whatever, you could put up with that. You imagine going in a cell where somebody else's shite is on the wall. Yeah, and them lads, over a period of a couple of days, came off that protest, including the lad who had led them in that protest. Like I said, in healthcare, dirty conditions, people mentally unwell, horrendous. However, a light moment, or as light as it's going to get. When I first went on the healthcare, we didn't have our own exercise yard. I'm just going to keep an eye on that boy. I think he's lost. We didn't have our own exercise yard. So we used to take prisoners off the healthcare unit down to the segregation unit. Segregation yard had an external gate. So from the inner prison, you could get on a seg yard. That's where I would take the lads off healthcare. Sunny day, I put them on the yard through this gate. I then went through a gate just outside the seg unit, a sterile area where officers would stand, and you could observe all 4 segregation yards at the same time. So we're using one of the segregation yards. Yorkshire lad, played rugby, we had a lot in common, bald, incredibly handsome like me. He came out, at that time you could smoke in Strangeways. He came out, stood aside of me, lit a fag up. We're having the, you know, usual chat, bit of dry humour, prison humour and the like. I looked at him, I said, that's disgusting. He looked at me, He says, that's not me. The smell, an assault on the senses. Next minute, the gate in front of me, where my lads are on the yard, the lads are trying to get through the gate to me. Mr. Samworth, get us off the yard, get us off the yard. They're fighting each other, they're screaming. Move, yeah? Parted the waves, there's a lad on there. Can't remember his name. He hasn't been with us long. He is naked. Yeah, he has his hands between his legs. He deposited everything his body had got. And then he smeared it all over himself. Consequently, he didn't leave that yard for the healthcare. He went on the seg unit for 2 hours, where he then cleaned himself up. Stevie, parting shot, I'm going to leave it there. Conditions of dirty protest. Stevie? Stevie? There you go. Who's this? Is this geezer all right? This one here is the one that come up and kissed me the other day. Hello. You give me a big sloppy kiss, didn't you? Eh? There you go. Thanks for coming. I'll see you.